Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
Your kids will never be as successful as your brothers, Dad laughed, pouring himself another drink. Mom chimed in without missing a beat. Some people are just born to fall short. They said it like it was a joke. Like my entire existence, my sacrifices, my silence, was a punchline over pasta. My son had just gotten his first job. My daughter was applying to grad school. But none of that mattered.
Not to them.
I stood up.
Calm.
Steady. I didn't raise my voice. Then tell your golden boy to pay all the bills, I said. Because I'm not sending money anymore. The room went quiet. Forks froze midair. Even the ceiling fan seemed to hesitate. Mom's eyes narrowed. What money? She asked slowly. We never got a cent from you. She said it like she believed it. Like the automatic transfers I'd been sending for 7 years never happened. As if the $800 for their leaking roof, the $3,200 for Dad's hospital bills, the monthly $500 for emergencies that were always suspiciously vague, had all been figments of my imagination. I didn't argue, didn't pull out the receipts. Not yet. Because this wasn't about truth. It was about power. They thought they could rewrite history. That my silence made me small. But they forgot who set up their online banking, who managed their taxes, who held the passwords. My name is Maren Clark, I'm 35. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the quiet daughter pulls the plug? Not out of anger, but out of exhausted clarity. They wanted loyalty. They demanded sacrifice. But they gave none. And I finally stopped bleeding for people who can't even admit I was their lifeline. They didn't follow me out of the dining room. No one did. Not even my brother, who sat at the end of the table, smirking like the crown prince of nothing. I drove home without music. The silence was louder than grief. At midnight, I opened my laptop, logged into their shared bank account, the one I managed. I stared at the scheduled payments. Mortgage support, $1,200 per month. Utility coverage, $410 per month. A prescription plan auto refill, $289 per month. All from my account, all masked under family love. I canceled everyone.
Click, click, click. Done.
And then I pulled up the email drafts I'd never sent. The ones titled, For When They Say I Did Nothing. Each one had an attachment. Invoices I'd paid. Transcripts I'd funded. Appliances I replaced. A 7-year trail of quiet giving. I forwarded them all to myself. No one else. Not yet. By morning, my phone had 10 missed calls. All from Mom. All ignored. But her voicemail? That I saved. Maren, sweetheart, I think there's been some mix-up. We'd never compare you. You know how your father jokes. Anyway, the water got shut off this morning. Did you forget the bill? I didn't reply. Instead, I sent her a spreadsheet. Color-coded.
Line by line.
Total at the bottom. $62,450.83. No message. No subject line. Just numbers.
Cold. Quiet. Real.
5 minutes later, she texted. You really kept track? I did. Because love, without acknowledgement, becomes labor. And labor, without respect, becomes debt. And I was done paying theirs. By the weekend, the family group chat had turned into a circus. My brother, always the first to play diplomat when his comfort was at stake, finally chimed in. Not sure what's going on with Maren, but we should keep family issues private. Private? Like the time Mom accidentally forwarded my divorce papers to the entire group? Or when Dad announced at Thanksgiving that I'd always been too sensitive to succeed? Now, they wanted privacy. I didn't reply there either.
But I saw the shift.
My cousins stopped sending memes. The chat went silent. And then came the call from my father. I picked up this time. Because some silences need to be broken to be heard. Your mother's not well, he said sharply.
She's stressed.
You've embarrassed her. I didn't embarrass her. I replied, calm as glass. She did that when she pretended I never helped her. He exhaled heavily, like talking to me was an inconvenience. I just don't understand why you're keeping track. Families don't keep score. That line. That perfect, polished line. I only kept score, I said, because you kept denying I ever played.
Click.
He hung up. No apology. No reflection. Just the familiar sound of disconnect, literal and emotional. I stared at my ceiling for an hour after that, then opened a new document on my laptop, titled it, When Love Has Receipts. And I started writing. Not just numbers, but memories. Moments. Every time I shrunk myself to make room for them. Because this time, I wouldn't let the story be rewritten. They wanted a scapegoat. I was becoming a scribe. Monday morning, I got an unexpected knock. It was my aunt, Dad's sister. Always neutral, always absent. The type who says, "Let me know if you need anything," and then disappears for 6 years. She stepped inside like she owned the space, her arms crossed, mouth already tight with judgment. "I just want to understand what's happening," she said. "Your parents are heartbroken. Your mom says you've cut them off, that you're keeping score." There it was again. That phrase. Used like a weapon. "I didn't start keeping score," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending it was a game." I handed her the printed spreadsheet. Watched her eyes scan down the rows. The medical bills. The rent payments. The groceries. The repairs. The birthday gifts my parents claimed came from them, but were always funded by me. She said nothing. Just handed it back like it was radioactive. "You know your brother's struggling," she whispered. "As the son, he has responsibilities. You have to understand that." "I do," I replied. "That's why I covered his law school loans when he flunked out and never told anyone." Her face went pale. I watched her recalibrate, then retreat. She left without saying goodbye. Didn't even close the door properly. I stood there for a long time after she left, half expecting someone else to show up.
To guilt me. To twist it around.
But no one did. Not that day. I wasn't the villain. I just stopped playing the unpaid hero. And I could feel the balance shifting. Not just in numbers, but in narrative. They had stolen my silence. I was reclaiming my voice. By Thursday, I got the letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. On thick cream paper. Folded once. Placed in an envelope with no return address. But I recognized Mom's cursive immediately. It read, "Marin, we don't understand what you're trying to prove. We did our best. We gave you everything we could. If we made mistakes, it was out of love. Stop dragging the past into the light. It's unkind. It's humiliating. Let this go.
Be better than this, Mom."
There it was. No apology. No ownership. Just emotional sleight of hand. A magician's trick where the guilt disappears into my lap. I folded the letter and placed it next to the receipts. Another artifact in the museum of things they wanted me to forget. That evening, I logged into my personal blog, the one I never shared, where I wrote late at night when the silence felt too loud. And I published a post titled, "When You're the Family Wallet." I changed names, masked dates. But the story? It was mine. And it was true. By midnight, it had 4,000 reads. By morning, 12,000. Hundreds of comments. Strangers saying, "Same. Thank you." I thought it was just me. I didn't write it to expose them. I wrote it so I wouldn't keep erasing me. Because silence had cost me too much already.
Time.
Health.
Dignity.
This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. They wanted me invisible. Now the world was reading. And I wasn't shrinking anymore. The blog post went viral by the end of the week. Not just shares, traction. A popular online magazine reposted it under the headline, "The Hidden Cost of Being the Good Child, One Daughter's Wake-Up Call." The comments poured in. Thousands. People telling their stories. Siblings who were always the fallback plan. Children turned piggy banks. Daughters called selfish for setting boundaries. And somewhere in that wave of voices, I stopped feeling alone. Then came the message I didn't expect. From my old high school English teacher. "Marin, I recognized your writing. I always knew you had a voice. Thank you for using it." I cried in my car for 12 straight minutes. because it had been years since anyone saw me as something other than useful. The next morning, I got a new email. Subject: Family response, drafted by Andrew. My brother. The golden one. The one they always said had potential, even when he couldn't hold a job for more than 3 months. I opened it, scanned past the long-winded defense of our parents, the passive-aggressive tone, the faux concern. But one line stuck out. If you really cared about this family, you wouldn't air our dirty laundry. You'd stay quiet like you always have. That line, the quiet like you always have. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was an expectation, a demand. And for the first time, I realized they never loved my voice. They only loved my silence. So I hit delete. And then I hit record. A podcast. My story. Our reality. Unfiltered. Because if they didn't want the world to hear it, they should have treated me better while it was still a secret. The podcast launched on a Wednesday. Episode 1. Inheritance without a will. The unpaid roles daughters inherit. No names. No revenge. Just truth. Layered. Measured.
Calm.
I didn't scream. Didn't accuse. I simply told my story. How love turned into expectation. How responsibility became exploitation. And how silence was the price of being the good one. Within a week, I had 18,000 listeners. Messages flooded in. You're telling my story. I thought I was crazy. I didn't know we were allowed to stop. And then, Mom found it. She didn't call. She didn't write. She posted on Facebook. A long, emotionally laced post about children who forget where they came from. A smiling photo of her and my brother, captioned, "Some of us still know what real family means." It got likes, comments, sympathy, but it didn't sting.
Not like it used to.
Because I had already grieved the mother I thought I had. This version, performative, passive-aggressive, curated for applause, wasn't mine to mourn. I responded the only way I knew how. Episode 2. When parents rewrite the past and expect you to narrate the lie. I played one of her voicemails. Soft-spoken. Manipulative. The one where she said, "Don't tell your father, but we need the mortgage again this month. Just until things get better." I paused. Let the silence breathe. Then said, "If that's love, it should never feel like debt." They wanted to silence me. Instead, they gave me a microphone. And I wasn't afraid anymore. Because when you stop begging for love, you make space for dignity. And dignity speaks louder than history. 6 weeks later, I received a letter. A real one this time, no lawyer, no signature for my brother. Just Mom's handwriting.
Shaky.
Careful. Almost human. Marin. Asterisk, we didn't realize how much we asked of you until you stopped giving. We were wrong to pretend your help never existed. We were wrong to laugh at your kids. We didn't know how to say thank you, so we acted like you owed us. Asterisk. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know we see it now. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. Not perfect. Not complete. But honest. I folded it and placed it in the same box as the receipts. The old bills. The hospital statements. That box wasn't a vault of anger anymore. It was a reminder. I didn't imagine it. I wasn't crazy. And I survived it. The podcast kept growing. I changed the title to Break the Pattern. Because that's what this really was. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just breaking a cycle loud enough for the next daughter to hear. At my daughter's graduation, I held her hand while she looked at her acceptance letter for a PhD program. She whispered, "I want to pay for this myself, Mom. You've done enough." And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry from being emptied. I cried from being seen. Because healing didn't come from making them hurt. It came from finally knowing I didn't have to.